Hi, Pete. It's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help you with your serve. Your son, Chris, got you this video stroke analysis lesson with me. And I have to say, you have a gorgeous serve just going through your motion. I know that you're looking to hit the serve so that it only bounces one time before the fence. That's definitely something that every tennis player wants to achieve and wants to keep in their game. So he gave me a little background on your play. You were one heck of a player, and you still are. So I am really excited and honored to do this stroke analysis. Let me give you a couple things here that I think are really great about your serve, and then I'll give you some areas for improvement. So the first one is when you lift your racket up, the fact that you have your palm down, where you could place a ball in the throat of the racket like this, absolutely fantastic. It is the makings of a powerful serve. It allows for a baseball or football throwing motion in order to gain, the speed that you're looking for. So this is not typical, and I think you know that. This is not what, most recreational players have. So you're way ahead, and it seems like you've been way ahead of the competition for decades. So I absolutely love that. Another thing that I love is your low toss. So I use what's called a toss timer because I only teach about one lesson a week on court. My whole entire business is online. And so what I've had to do is develop a way to explain the height of a toss while not being next to someone. So I use a timer. So I put it so that the ball is near head level, right? Like near the top of the head. And then I just put a timer down and I see how long it takes for the player to hit the ball. And my recommended time for the toss is anywhere between 0.6 and 0.9, oops, sorry, didn't have a tool there. There you go. 0.9 seconds. So anywhere 0.6 to 0.9. And we can see that you are 0.66. I caught one that was 0.7. So there's the 0.66 one right there. Let's do this one. Let's see which one this was. So perfect, 0.69, 0.7. So you're right there where J.J. Wolf and Nick Kyrgios are, lower on the scale. You've got Federer and Nadal and Djokovic who are 0.83, which is a little higher on the scale. My favorite player of all time, Pete Sampras, is around 0.9, 0.93. So he's, just off the scale, but I'll let you tell him that. I'm not telling him that. So you're right where you need to be. Nice low toss, puts the ball right where you need it so that you can absolutely just swing super fast whenever you want to. And then the last thing I want to show you is this beautiful pronation where your racket goes from facing to the left, where it looks like you're going to hit with the edge of the racket, strings are facing left, and then you pronate into contact, and then your strings are facing right. So you just have a beautiful serve. But look, everyone, even the pros, have the ability to improve. So that's what we're going to go over now. So with no further ado, we have Pete's areas for improvement. So this is all so that we can get you serving faster, Pete. And the first thing I'm going to suggest is that you actually hold slightly lower on the handle. I'll show you this. You choke up a little bit. And the serve is one of those strokes, especially for myself, that I like to hold a little bit lower on the handle. It just helps to create a little more leverage, a little more looseness, and that last link of the hand and the looseness of the pronation as you go through contact, it absolutely can help you. So I think that's going to be an instant improvement if you just hold a little bit lower on the racket. The second thing we're going to cover is coiling. So you have minimal coil at the beginning of your serve. And I'm actually going to show you J.J. Wolf. I'll show you my serve as well. The coil at the beginning allows for uncoiling. Just think of a baseball pitcher turning away from the target, and the catcher, and then turning back toward again. We're going to talk about using a rainbow toss rather than an elevator toss. Your toss is an elevator. It goes straight up in the air. And actually, I might actually tell myself that I'm wrong. Your toss actually goes slightly backward. So you're very straight up and down as you're contacting. So I'm going to suggest that we toss a little more forward into the court, and a little dab will do you on that one. Just a little bit more forward where the ball arcs into the court makes a world of difference. Fourth, we're going to talk about you want to go up to the birthday hat, not down. This has to do with your elbow position. When your racket is kind of cocked behind you, you have quite a high elbow position, which isn't ideal when you're throwing, and especially hitting up into a serve. So I'm going to show you how to actually use a birthday hat to help you learn the proper elbow position. But it's about going up to the birthday hat with your racket rather than going down. And the last thing is bending your knees. You have very little knee bend. Now, I have very little knee bend as well. I'm 44, but my knees feel about 124. Like, I just have bad knees. And I've really always had bad knees. It always hurts for me to bend my knees a lot. So I'm going to suggest, and this is the last thing, I'm going to suggest that you just experiment with the amount of knee bend that you can use that still feels comfortable. But again, if each one of these ideas gives us, 2 more miles an hour, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to just hit a 10 or even 3 miles an hour, each 15 mile an hour faster serve, just because of this lesson. Now, Pete, whenever I do these video lessons, the order in which I look at things, especially on the serve, is always grip, body, toss, swing. Grip, body, toss, swing. Now, I start that way, but then obviously I bounce around a little bit here and there. Because some people halfway through their serve, they'll change their grip, and then I got to go back to the grip again. But the very first thing I look at is the grip. And I noticed this right here, how I could see the butt of the racket sticking out. When the butt of the racket is sticking out like that, that means you're choked up on the grip. And I'd rather you choke down. Let me compare you to my serve. All right, Pete, just for clarification, you're the good looking one on the left, all right? So we get you into that same position and we can see the butt of the racket. So I want you to look at me. What do you notice? We're in a very similar place here in our serves, right? And notice you don't see the butt cap. So because of this, my hand is more down the grip this way, where you're more up the grip. So that change where you just choke down a little bit and have more of the heel pad and a little bit, just a half an inch, try a half an inch down. And if you like that, then try another half inch. Find where you still feel a ton of stability, but yet you've just lengthened the lever, you've created more looseness, and right there, you are going to feel that you can swing faster. This is one of my favorite tips to give to people. I don't recommend this on necessarily a forehand or a one-handed backhand, obviously, but this is something that you can do on the serve in order to gain more racket speed. I'm not sure if you've ever tried it, but it is going to feel quite different. Just the feeling in your hand, not even as you're hitting, but the feeling in your hand just starting in the ready position. So I'm excited for that. And to kind of hear how that's working. But at this point right here, we really, in my experience and with my recommendation, I recommend that the students cannot see the grip, as you can see here. So that's tip number 1, and you can apply that the very first time you go out and play. Now, for the second idea, we're going to talk about coiling at the beginning of the serve. This is where we turn our body where our opponent can see our back. And when we coil, then it allows us to uncoil into the serve. So when we watch you serve, notice how the ball doesn't cross the line of your body. So here's the line of your body. And you'll notice that the ball comes down, but doesn't cross this line, and then just goes back up again. Watch how the ball never crosses the line of your body. Like that right there is the closest I can get the ball to your left pocket from the camera's view. There's this distance here. I want you to watch my serve. Watch, again, here's the line of my body. Watch where my ball goes. And this is apples to apples. It's ad side versus ad side. Everything is the same here. Look where my ball goes. My ball is back by my right pocket from the camera's view. It's the same angle, side view. So I'm turning my back to my opponent. When you serve, you kind of have a bit of like your arms flapping like a bird, where you got one wing going up here and one wing going up over here. and you really have minimal coil. This is really the first thing that should happen on a serve, where you keep the racket and ball together. You can see that the ball and racket are together here. The ball is just past my groin, and my racket and ball are within an inch of each other, where you separate your hands very early, and that is going to mean that you're not going to coil. So you'll notice your shoulder angle really doesn't change much, where mine changes a lot, and I'm really turning my back to my opponent. You'll notice that this actually produces a point where I'm actually covering up my face with the ball, where when you lift, the ball is not in front of your face. This is actually called a J-toss, where you bring the ball back and then you toss into the court. Let me show you J.J. Wolf, top 50 player in the world, using this technique. So this guy, you probably know who he is. He won the NCAA championship out of Ohio State University a couple years ago. And look how the ball is back by his groin. Here's the hallmark of this, of coiling, of turning your back, that the ball is behind your tossing shoulder. That from the shoulder to the ball goes backward. Notice you always have the ball in front of your tossing shoulder, where he has it back here. So this yellow line is JJ, and we're going to make this red line obviously you. If you just turn your body more, then the ball goes back to where JJ is. This isn't a case of just pull the arm back or like move your arm, the ball back. This is a case of coiling. And if we watch where his chest is facing, here his chest is facing in the green arrow. And then look here, like it's amazing where his chest is. He has completely turned his back. You can see he's covering up his face with the toss. It's the same idea. And so when you coil, you can't get blood from a stone. So you're going to reap what you sow here. If you can coil, then you can uncoil. Because you have very little coiling, you're not able to uncoil like a baseball pitcher. And this is, in my opinion, the biggest reason. All of these are important that we're going to talk about, but this is the number one reason why you're not hitting your serve as fast as you'd like, because you're only relying on your arm and you're not relying on the body. So at the beginning of your serve, instead of separating your arms, have the very first movement. You can see the racket and ball. Sorry about that. Push the wrong button. At the very beginning of your serve, go back with both hands by rotating the body. All you have to feel is that you are turning your back to your opponent at the very beginning of your serve. So for the third idea, we're going to talk about the rainbow toss. So this is, do you know who this is? Can you tell I'm covering up his face? It's Ivo Karlovic, one of the biggest servers of all time. By the way, look how he's covering up his face with the toss, right? That's because the ball went back to his groin. A lot of pros, they go back and then allows them to toss into the court. So this coiling that we learned in the second idea is actually going to help us now do the rainbow toss, where we can lean in when we serve. But I want you to look at the way the ball travels. So here is the ball coming out of his hand. So we'll put a little dot there. And then let's just track the ball. Incredible, right? So it's amazing that the ball isn't just going up and down like an elevator, but it's arcing into the court. If you can get it so that it arcs into the court, you can really lean in as you're striking the ball. And you can see this line, this power line that he has, where he's very much leaning inside the court. When we look at your toss, and we put a little dot there, and then we trace it, your toss actually goes slightly backward. And your toss goes this way. Oops, sorry, didn't draw that well. Now, this is partly due to the fact that the pros that I've shown you so far bring the ball back. So one would argue, and I've had people argue this, Pete, they'll say, some students, right? They'll argue with it. And it's like, hey, well, since the ball went back, no wonder it had to go forward into the court. I'm just tossing straight up to that point. But as we even saw, your toss is going slightly behind you. You will lean in and toss farther forward with a rainbow toss than you will just a straight up toss. So getting your toss to arc into the court so that you're truly leaning in. I know you're not jumping. You're keeping your left foot on the ground. But you can see, that you are slightly inside the court. If we just take a straight line here, the distance inside the court is much greater than yours. And so you can see compared. So if you can get your toss to go farther in the court, farther forward, it's no different than a baseball pitcher taking that big stride and leaning in, throwing a punch. Anytime you can toss even just a few more inches, I don't want you to feel off balance as you're serving, but just even a few more inches into the court is going to make a world of difference. And let me show you JJ, because this is actually called a J toss. So I'm just going to mark where the ball is, and you'll see quite easily why it's called a J toss. There we go. So the ball goes like this. Watch the ball travel along the J. Goes down, around. Hit the same button again. You can see that ball arcing into the court. So when you practice this and you do your coil, embrace the fact that the ball goes back. And then when the ball goes back, just toss forward and up from there. Here's what a lot of players do incorrectly, Pete, is they'll coil, which means the ball makes this move, but then they go back forward again to toss, and then they go right back to tossing straight up again. So when you go back, you just go up and forward from there. So I would recommend putting a ball basket out in front of you. Old trick we coaches use, right? And you toss forward and arc it into the ball basket. That'll just teach you, once you turn, to not go back and then forward and up, but to actually go back and then up and then forward. Go back, up, then forward, and that'll give you the arc that you're looking for so that you can lean in and add power to the serve. Pete, number 4 is you have to go up to the birthday hat, not down. The birthday hat is really simple. I think you know what I mean by that. Some older players would know it as a dunce cap, but I like to say the birthday hat. It's like you're wearing a birthday hat that a kid would wear, right? This elastic string under their chin, and it's a cone on top of the head. So when you go to the birthday hat, you go up and then down to the birthday hat. Watch how you follow that line. You're going up here, then down to the birthday hat. I want to show you how I'm going up to the birthday hat. So the two of us are in a very similar place, but I've gone like this, you've gone like that. The red line is going to give you an elbow that is slightly too high. In fact, my elbow position is kind of smack dab where you want it to be. You could be a little bit higher than I have it, but really where I am is where you want to be. What you want is your shoulders to be in a line to your elbow, where you are like this, and then you go whoop, and then you go up. The throwing motion and that you want to use on the serve is very much an upward motion. And when your elbow is too high, then you're not able to align the body in a powerful enough position to get the racket speed that you're looking for. It's a very common thing that players have the elbow too high. The easiest way to address the high elbow position is actually to address the way the racket lifts. And that's why I'm talking about lifting your racket here, how your racket's going up at this point, where you can see my racket coming in. It's almost like I'm saluting, and my racket's making that move in over my head. So one of the things that I would suggest, and Chris, I'm going to ask you to do this, is Chris, I would love if you stood behind your dad and just held your racket here. That's your racket. And your dad is not allowed to hit the racket. And you'll notice my racket pass right in under the racket. If we did that with your dad at the moment, Chris, and we had that racket here, right here, the strings, he would break your racket. And from here, we just want the racket to pass in over the head. So what you want to think of, Pete, because like what it feels like is so important for me to describe. Once you coil the body, you have to feel like your racket just goes back and then immediately to your head. It goes back and immediately to the top of your head. Don't bring it up here. And it can't be this big winding swing. It's more abbreviated. So you're so used to going up. It's back and then in. It's like you're saluting, right? So just think of it as an elbow bend where you're lifting your hand up to your forehead to salute. It's no different. You're just going to be lifting the racket from your shorts. You can see my racket is down by shorts level. The feeling is that you immediately go to the top of your head from that point, from your shorts level once you coil, rather than lifting your racket up to higher than your head, then dropping it down. The high elbow position is simply not the power position on a throw, especially on a serve where you're trying to throw the ball up. You'll notice that the elbow does rise up, but the elbow should be going up, not forward. And you very much have like a forward elbow move where I have an upward elbow move. As the elbow drives up, the racket falls down. You get a bigger racket drop, bigger circular swing, especially with a low toss. You couple a big swing with a low toss. That means you got a far distance to go in a very short amount of time. And man, you are going to absolutely blast serve. So when you toss the ball, just try to come tight in over the head. Have somebody place their racket right here so you do not hit their racket. Maybe use a pickup tube. That way, in case the first couple times you do it, you don't scratch your racket. So for the last idea, the knee bend, making sure that you bend your knees as you lift your racket, I'm going to show you Taylor Fritz. So when you release the ball, you'll notice you have no knee bend. I would even say that you kind of get up on your tippy toes and you get taller as you toss. When you look at Taylor Fritz, as he tosses, he bends his knees. Now, I'm not saying you have to have the knee bend of a 25-year-old. That is not what I'm saying. You just want to see how much you can do. Everything we talked about, from holding lower on the handle, the coil, the rainbow toss, going up to the birthday hat, not lifting so high and having to drop to the birthday hat, it's going to give you the speed that you need and are looking for and is well within your capabilities. The knee bend, as I already told you with myself, is not something that I'm comfortable doing. And you'll notice that you don't bend your knees until your racket's actually hitting the birthday hat or like dropping to the birthday hat. Where Taylor, you can see he's got the lower elbow. He's not lifting his elbow super high the way you are. The knee bend occurs as he's releasing the ball. So as the ball is coming out of his hand, he is initiating the knee bend. So this is not the first thing you're going to work on. This is the last thing you're going to work on. You're going to do everything in order. Everything that I taught you, you're going to work on in order. But all I want you to do is work on, as you release the ball, you bend your knees at that point. Then you can explode up as much as you can, whatever you're capable of doing, to hit a much bigger serve. All right, Pete, so one more time. Hold slightly lower on the handle, coil at the beginning, use a rainbow toss, go up to the birthday hat, not down, and bend the knees as your racket lifts. Pete, thank you so much for the opportunity to help you with your serve. Chris, what a great gift for your dad. And look, Pete, you work on these ideas, and there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2MinuteTennis.net. Pete, you got this.